Welcome everyone to the AVS Professional Development webinar on End Useless Meetings Here, Lead and Participate Like a Pro. Today's webinar will be led by Dr. Lily Wong, who is the director of the Durham School of Architectural Engineering and Construction at the College of Engineering at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. Lily is a former president and vice president of the Acoustical Society of America, as well as a fellow of ASA. She has numerous classes and professional development sessions on leadership, teamwork, and communication for faculty, student, and industry groups. We are delighted to have Lily once again present a webinar for us on such an important topic. But before we begin, I'd like to go over a few items with you. If you have any questions for Lily during today's webinar, we encourage you to enter your questions in the Q&A box, and Lily will do her best to answer it during the webinar or at the end. If you have any technical issues, please contact me directly in the chat feature. And finally, there will be a survey at the end of this webinar, so please take a few moments to provide us with your feedback. We will also be doing some interactive polls during today's webinar. So please scan the QR code that you see on the screen or go to menti.com and enter the code that you see on the screen. And now I'd like to thank Lily for and presenting this webinar for us. Lily, if you're ready, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks everybody for being here for today's webinar. I am very excited to be presenting my third AVS Professional Development presentation. Thank you for inviting me back to the Professional Development Committee and on this timely topic that a lot of people had interest in. I will share my slides now. All right. Okay. I am very excited to talk about this topic, End Useless Meetings Here, Lead and Participate Like a Pro. And as Angela said, today we will have some interactive components using a tool called Mentimeter. So hopefully you had a chance to go to menti.com, but if not, here is the code again. Meetings, that's what we're talking about today. And if you will either scan this on your screen or if you have another browser open, you can go to menti.com and enter that code. And the first screen you'll see when you, oops, sorry, let me go back, should be this one. So I can see that approximately 18 of you have joined into the Menti, and we just have this easy one to start for you to interact and pin for us where you are, either in the United States or if you are in another country. There were people registered from Sweden and Spain and Switzerland and Turkey and Portugal, Canada. So exciting to have all of you here, but also very exciting to have people from all across the United States. So I can see that several of you are interacting with that and just getting used to the interface, because yes, it'll be a little more fun as we talk about meetings if you participate and are engaged in the meeting as well. Yes, we now have 21. That's great. And more of you. Okay. I'm actually going to move on from that to the first question, which is maybe why, this is to get us there. Why do we even have meetings? There's a lot of data, and I'm drawing a lot of this from my own experience, the presentation today from my own experience, but also from two books, which I will add the references to in this presentation, and I often do provide the slides so that you all can receive a copy of them. But there's data in these books that will say that, from popular polls, that everybody thinks that meetings suck and have a lot of reasons why they suck. And I imagine that's why you're here, is that you have participated in such meetings, but we still need them. So yes, this is a chance for you to share, like, why do we have to have meetings? Why do we need meetings? So thank you. I see collaborate is getting a lot of responses. Communicate, decisions, collaborate, avoid emails. That's funny because I would agree with that. That sometimes people are like, why are we having a meeting when this could just be an email? But I do believe that now we're at a current state where there are too many emails. Certainly, I'm getting too many emails. Decision making, communicating requests, task management. That's great. So yes, thank you to plan, to align, to argue, to have common ground. Oh, that's interesting. Writing is too hard. Okay. Yeah, so sometimes I feel like that too. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I just want to get on the phone and talk to this person because if I had to explain it in an email, writing it, I might not get the right tone correct. I might have to add so many details. It's much more quicker to have be in a one-on-one in that case. So thanks for all that. You can keep adding there if you want, but I'm going to go back to my presentation here. Oh, so yes, my summary has a lot of the same things that you were just typing in the Menti. We might need to create or share something that could be easily misinterpreted. Somebody wrote, well, many of you wrote alignment. Yes, that we might get stakeholders together and we need to make sure we're all on the same page. We have a common understanding. We don't want to have misunderstandings, want to reduce confusion, generating solutions. That's very hard to do just by emails or reports. Getting together in person, having a meeting could be a much more efficient way to do it. Getting input from various perspectives, getting this collective information from the group, and then also coming up with implementation plans. So this is along the same lines of a lot of what you all just typed in. We all know this, but we also feel like we need these things to happen in a meeting, but they're not always what successfully happens in a meeting. And so let's go back to the Menti. And oops, there we are, back to the Menti. Why? Why isn't that happening? We know like what we want to happen, but actually it seems that too many of us are in meetings that basically are a waste of time. What's happening? Can you tell me, like, what's an example you can think of from the last meeting where you left and you're rolling your eyes and you thought that was such a waste of time? That could have been an email. That I wasn't paying attention in. Thank you. Too many attendees, nothing to contribute. One person dominating the conversation. Getting sidetracked. That's like very much like deviating, getting off track. Again, one person dominating, disorganized, poor agenda, side conversations. It was already emailed. Why are they still talking about it? They're not working on strategy. Someone's just talking about himself. This one was here too, that maybe there was too many attendees that aren't contributing. So, oh, poorly prepared, loss of focus, bad pacing, getting too distracted, unclear objective. Oh, this one, we're going to talk a little bit about that later. Not that we're going to necessarily have a solution, but we'll at least brainstorm a bit. Unprepared participants, starting late, too many things to us, loss of focus. We've all been there. And I think all of us probably can think of meetings that we have had in the past month that have actually had this happen, any of these things. So this book that I have already, these two books, but the one I'm going to be pulling from next, on the next slide, I thought did a really good job of summarizing and putting all these things that go wrong in meetings into three general categories of why we are annoyed by them. So back to the slides here. Three categories of why meetings will sometimes be bad. There's time, things that are happening that really make it suck our time, things that are draining our motivation, and things that drain our energy. And the next slide is taken directly from that book. I've clipped it from page 44, 45 of the book. And as I said, the reference will be in here. But I like that. So you can sort of see how they have nicely characterized that these are basically what's happening. The person who, like, what's sucking up time? The speaker's late. They don't show up. People who are supposed to make the decision aren't showing up. The leaders aren't prepared, or the other participants are prepared. That's a waste of time. People who talk more than necessary. That was a response that many of you gave. Same information that we already read in the email. Spend time talking about things that are not on the agenda. They keep repeating the same thing. Talked in circles. There's no agenda. So things that definitely are, that could be streamlined in terms of time. But then there's other things that sort of make us less motivated in the meeting, right? There's actually uncomfortable conflict. There's yelling, there's arguing. Maybe, yeah, there's one or two people dominating and nobody else feels like they need to contribute. There's like not motivation to do that. Maybe somebody's talking down, doing a little bit of what I'm going to describe later through the Crucial Conversations framework as verbal violence. So they're talking down to people in the meeting. Um, we're saying that people should be here. You said that too many participants and maybe they don't need to be there. Criticism, blaming, um, interruptions. They can't understand when there's no plans. And then even further, the category of energy that like I just don't even, I want to fall asleep. I actually have been in meetings, and maybe you all have too, where there have been people in the room who fell asleep because it was so boring. So boring. And the presentation was maybe very monotone and nobody could really stay interested because there was nothing keeping us tied to it. Maybe there's tensions, but the leader or the other participants aren't helping to reduce that. So it's sucking your energy. It's so slow. The boss is ignoring people. People are leaving. The monotone on their phones. They're ignoring it. People on their laptops. Does that happen in some of your meetings? Some of my faculty meetings, it happens. Faculty are on their laptops and typing away. Um, maybe the room is too small. Maybe they're side conversations. So these all can go badly. And now I think it's just kind of interesting to think like, yeah, that's what's happening is I either am feeling what a waste of time, or I have no motivation to be here, or I just don't have a lot of energy. Sometimes the leader is, yeah, uh, not really leading, like just listening to themselves talk. So, all right. So we know we should have meetings. We all have experienced how bad meetings are. What happens when you are in a bad meeting? So let's do one more interactive thing. What do you do? What are you doing in the meeting when you start feeling the time, like the time sucker column, or the energy sucker column, or the motivation? What do you start doing? Yeah. So now I'm thinking about my shopping list. So now, thank you. Do other work. Yes. Maybe some of you are doing other work right now. It's fine. We're on a webinar. Work on something else. Yeah, look at your phone doodling. That's what I have some family members that's their go-to. They start doodling on the paper. Daydream. Yes, answer emails because of the ever incessant flow of emails. Interrupt about time. Try to return the focus. That's great. That's really great. We're going to talk about how, in a way, we do need, as participants, even if you're not the leader has a lot of control of the meeting and can try to help manage that. But even when you're a participant, yeah, these are things that you could get frustrated. Yes. So yeah, we do other stuff. And I think that's why we feel like meetings are such a waste of time, because we should have them, but they're not being run well. And so I'm sitting here feeling like it's a waste of time. Back to our slideshow. So yeah, you stop paying attention. You start doing something else. Maybe you offer suggestions to the leader or the facilitator. Maybe you even take the reins. I will admit that in my history, I have often so often been tempted to do that, to just be like, heck, I'm going to just use the skills I have to try to lead it. Sometimes, they're having a meeting after the meeting because the actual meeting where something was supposed to get done didn't get done. So these are all why we have such frustrating feelings. So whose job is it? Well, yeah, primarily if you are the leader, or those of you who are earlier career and you are envisioning moving up the leadership chain, running meetings, being the one who's convening them and getting tasks done, the leader or the facilitator meeting, that is the primary person who should be practicing these skills that we're going to talk about today and can affect the meeting outcomes. But I'm also going to say that as I share these tools today, there are lots of ways to run good meetings, and we will each have our own personal style. But my hope is that by the end of this hour, you'll have a better idea of what is the mindset you need, because there is actually a mindset that you need to have to be participating and have a productive meeting. You'll also need to be developing skill sets and understand what tools are in your belt that you can pull out to have a more effective meeting. And two of the things that I want to sort of keep on the radar, they really maybe are more tied to mindset, is throughout the entire leadership, or even when you're a participant trying to help the leader have a productive meeting, you have to make sure you are maintaining respect, and you kind of need to have these little antennae out, right? Be very aware of what is going on, reading body language or reading the Zoom room, the online virtual hybrid room. But you need those things to have an effective meeting. You need to be aware of what's going on, and then also holding respect when maybe things aren't going the way you want. But in order to correct course, you do need to make sure that you're not shaming or blaming people. So we'll talk more about that. Okay, so I think one more Menti here. I wanted to go back to the Menti, to my next one. I just thought I'd let you already just rate yourself. So this is a different kind of Menti quiz where these are skill sets that a lot of the leadership and even these books about meetings will say that these are skill sets, these are characteristics of effective meeting leaders. So where do you think you are? Like, effective meeting leaders are enthusiastic and sincere. Do you feel, yeah, that you've strongly developed that, or do you feel like you need to develop it? How about your belief in the capabilities of others? Because you do need to believe in the capabilities of others. And that's that mindset part. If you don't, it can be hard to facilitate and lead good meetings. Are you open to other people's ideas, to their viewpoints? Do you not judge those things immediately? So are you deferring judgment? Can you remain in the sidelines, or do you have to be the one? Like, are you thinking, I'm the boss, everybody should hear what I'm talking about, or I am going to be the boss, everybody should think about what I'm talking about? Do you need to be in the spotlight? How about quick thinking? Because as I said, that antenna, right? The being aware, you are taking in data while maybe managing the meeting and have to be adapting and thinking on your feet quickly. How good are you at thinking about time constraints? Are there things you can do? I currently have a timer that's showing me where I am at. So, like there are things we can do to build these skill sets, but effective meeting leaders, they're conscious of where they are in their time. And can you be playful? Can you make it enjoyable? Are you having fun? And if you're not having fun, that's maybe going to produce a meeting that seems less fun, less enjoyable, less productive. So thank you to all of you who filled this out. I was interested to see, like, yeah, where you might feel your strengths are. And these are all things that one can continue working on, to develop. I don't think, and as we said before, it's personal style. Maybe I do tend to be a, as you already may guess, I very much favor fun and trying to get everybody on a positive note. I like to think that I am enthusiastic, sincere, that I can believe in the capabilities. I very much believe in crucial conversations and not judging. We'll talk more about that. Quick thinking is probably the one that I feel like I struggle the most with because sometimes it is a bit overwhelming. But okay, thank you for filling that out. Let's go back to the slides. So, okay, that's an overview of some of the mindset, skill sets, tool sets that we should be developing as we want to move into becoming better leaders and facilitators of meetings. Before I get into more of the tactics or strategies specifically that that I've learned and also that you can find in these good summaries, I want to touch on two other fundamental leadership skills that we've actually presented on before in the AVS Professional Development Series. So one is, how do you manage teams and groups? And the book I love the most about that is Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Highly recommend that any of you who haven't already read that in leadership or who are interested in leadership, definitely think about that book. And then the other one that I've mentioned several times is there's several different trainings, but the one I very much like is Crucial Conversations. How do we basically manage conflict? We cannot avoid conflict in the workplace. So what's better is that we learn how to manage it productively and respectfully. So I'm not going to repeat those. That the AVS YouTube channel has recordings of the previous presentations where I talked about some of these topics. So I encourage you to go back and look at those. But today, we're going to talk more specifically about meetings and the tactics, the strategies we can use to make sure that we're having effective, useful meetings, not useless ones. The bottom line here is you have to prepare. You must prepare before the meeting, be prepared during the meeting, and have good follow-up after the meeting. So we're going to split into those 3 phases. So before the meeting, one of the number one things is why. We already sort of talked about that at the beginning, that first Menti slide. Why are we having this meeting? And to be very clear what the purpose of this meeting is, if you are running the meeting and or if you're participating. We'll come back at the after I go through sort of the overall strategies of before, during, after the meeting. We'll come back and say, what if you aren't the leader? Which of these tools can you still use? But this is an acronym that Vehar and Dobler introduced. They call it CIDER. So the purpose of the meeting might be because of connection, because I need that because I actually lead a department of about 30 faculty. 20 of the faculty are in Omaha, 10 of the faculty are in Lincoln, and they are an hour apart by car. So I do have specific meetings at the state park 30 minutes from in between. And then one of the main purposes then is to build community and connection, that they start to meet each other and get to know each other as people. So that can be one of the purposes. Another one is just, I need people to know what's going on. I might have sent an email. I could, that was something that was even in the overview description of this. Could it have just been an email? But it's not that we shouldn't have meetings that inform, because sometimes what we're trying to inform people about is complicated. It could be easily misinterpreted, and we want to give an opportunity for people to ask questions. And so even though it is a bit, like I'm giving information and maybe not as interactive, it can still be a very good purpose for having a meeting. Debate. Some of you talked about this in that first Menti slide, that response said maybe we need to come up with good ideas. Should we? Here was one that I was just thinking. One of my academic programs is only in Omaha, not in Lincoln. And we were wondering, should we start to offer it on the Lincoln campus? That kind of discussion really has to happen in a meeting, right? To debate the pros and cons and get everybody's viewpoint on the table. Also exploring. Why were we talking about that? Because we wanted to increase enrollment. So are there other ideas that we could do to increase enrollment, recruitment? What are the things so exploring is also a way to be brainstorming. Like that is also a good reason, a solid reason that we should meet in person. And you all mentioned decision making. Yes, we need to resolve. We've all debated it already, explored it, and now we're ready. Are we going to pull the trigger? Are we going to offer this program as a pre-engineering program on the other campus? Let's finally make the resolution. Let's have the vote and the formal meeting. Now, meetings can have multiple reasons. Like maybe I want to, like when I have that meeting in the at Mahoney State Park between Lincoln and Omaha, it is partially for connection. It is a little bit of informing and a little bit of all these things, but maybe topic oriented, I have specific purposes. So certainly as you prepare, if you're the leader and facilitator for the meeting, do you have a clear idea of why we are having this meeting? Because if you don't, that's when we're going to have useless meetings that feel like a time suck or a motivation suck. Okay, so that's why. Then who should be in the room? Well, now that you've defined the purpose, now you have to think about, okay, so who's responsible for these things that we need to accomplish the purpose? Who is accountable for getting it done? It's a little bit different because maybe the people who are accountable are under, a larger division. Who might need to provide information? Maybe we need to have certain data, and those persons should be in the room so that we make sure that we have their viewpoint. Who needs to know and be informed? But this one's a trickier one, right? Because some of you did say, yeah, sometimes it feels like there's more people than need to be in the room. In one of these books, they talk about that if you are really trying to, I think have you ever tried to like write a paragraph altogether as a group of 20 people? It doesn't work, right? There is evidence and research that shows that a good size of a team to like work on some like smaller task can be anywhere from like 3 to 8, something like that. So if there's people there that aren't actually maybe going to be making the decision, but they need to know, can they actually just get a copy of the minutes or the copy of the resolutions or actions that were taken? Do they actually need to be in there? Who's going to be impacted? That could be also a reason to keep them, to have them in the room. So I hope that what I'm trying to lay out here is that having effective meetings is really about preparation, right? Understanding our purpose. Now that we understand our purpose, who needs to be in the room, and being very intentional about that and not just being like, oh, let's just get all the faculty, but very intentional. So, and I know I already saw that some of you who put in questions on the pre-registration, you wondered how you could still be inclusive, but maybe not have everybody. And we'll come back to that. But I'll just say it right now that actually it saves them time, right? If they don't have to sit through a 40-minute meeting and they can just, because they're not maybe totally responsible, accountable, have information, they just need to know. That's one way that you can frame it and be respectful of that. Well, uh, if you really want to, but really it would be saving you time if we just report out to you later. Okay, who's in the room? This is where practicing those skills of leading a team can be good, because when you have a well-functioning team, meetings of that team are more likely to go well because you know each other, you have a comfort level, there's that connection, maybe you understand each other's strengths and can fill in each other's weaknesses. What can be harder is sometimes you're having a meeting where there are people that don't always meet together or they're from different boundaries or groups, and that can cause challenges and take a lot more effort. So for example, there could be people in your meeting from different vertical levels of the organization. So then power dynamics are coming into play. Is it the chancellor of the university and then a faculty committee? Is it the CTO and then some staff engineers? So that can be more tricky because there's a tendency to want to defer to the person who has the greater power dynamic in the relationship. It could also be horizontal, though, boundaries. That is, maybe I'm in the sales group and I have different goals, which is just to sell as much as possible, than the production team does. They're a different part of our organization, horizontal boundary and group. but they have different, like maybe they can't we sell so much that they actually can't produce it. And so that's harder when we maybe have a tension of what is it that people want in the meeting. There's geographic, and this is just talking about literally physical distance. It might be like the team in Spain versus the team in California, or the team in the building next door. That these geographic boundaries also can make it difficult. And sometimes when we want to have a well-functioning meeting and who's in the room, because it can cause some tension. Stakeholders. This is like maybe community stakeholders, government stakeholders, customers, regulators. If those people are in the room, then again, they might have different views and goals than we might. And also demographics, right? We all come from diverse experiences and see it through a different filter. So, and if we aren't as familiar with each other, like my Lincoln faculty are not, don't see the Omaha faculty as often. So there is sort of a different demographic. And when I bring these people together, I have to be careful about how to manage that to have a productive meeting. I can't go through all of the tactics that they give. This book in particular, Vihar and Dobler, gives a lot of different ideas for how to approach all of them. And I don't have enough time because I was to go through all of it, but I will just say that those are struggles that we have, and that as we get better and better at managing meetings, we do have to think about that we do have to usually deal with that. One of the strategies is like have people buy in, right? So an agenda, and maybe sharing that. That's why preparation again is so key. Like if we had an agenda and I was already able to let the production team see that and the sales team see that, and have them sort of be able to already say like, these are the concerns I'm going to have, or these are the concerns I'm going to have, so we can prep and be prepared to have discussions across those differences. And then there's personalities. We're not going to be able to avoid this. So can you plan ahead? Or once you get a feeling for working with this team that you're working with regularly, can you actually try to get ahead of the problem? I definitely have faculty in my department who tend to go off tangent. One would say that they would be the character that you all put in who likes to listen to themselves talk. How can you influence that right ahead of time? Like, if that's a problem, we should address it. This is why, again, I'm saying crucial conversation skills, right? How do we not just let that go unchecked? That's why that's why meetings, I think, have this bad reputation, because too often we're letting them go unchecked. It's not fun. It's not easy to be in conflict and have to try to respectfully ask a colleague, a mentor, somebody who reports to you to rein that in. But there are ways to do that. And I always say that the number one answer of how you can influence that is to address it using some of those crucial conversation skills. I already also know who always brings their laptops to our meetings. I have one who's a very loud typer. So you can hear the keyboard go click, 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 click. Can we stop that before it starts? Again, like instead of spending years of faculty meetings with that happening, could we address that? And thinking very specifically, there's another book I like called Atomic Habits, which some of you may or may not have read before. And the author of that book, darn it, their name escapes me right now, but they often say, think about if this happens, then this. And so already expecting that if this disruption happens, be prepared. How are you going to address that in the moment? Okay, so this is still before the meeting, right? We're doing a lot of planning. What's the purpose? Who needs to be in the room for that purpose? And now the agenda, the structure. The best meetings have a very well-constructed agenda. And that takes time to do, because what's a well-constructed agenda? It's pertinent, it's concise, it will be specific. It doesn't that's actually another, the Crucial Learning training team has another professional development called Getting Things Done. And one of their suggestions on getting things done is to be specific, even when you make your own action item list. But certainly for a meeting, be specific about what the issue is to be discussed. And if there are more important things, do not put them towards the end. You prioritize the important things first when people have energy and are not bored or zoning out or thinking about their shopping lists. And you do need to be intentional about time management to be able to make sure that that you're utilizing the time carefully. So many of you said the person who just goes off and is talking forever and ever and ever. It is a skill to be practiced that when you're the leader and facilitator, how do you respectfully redirect the conversation? It can be done. It's not always perfect, but I would say that it's not easy. Like I definitely try to do it with no shame, no blame, being positive. There are other strategies that we'll talk about in just a moment. I was going to at this point share some examples and just show you that. So I was, as you heard, an officer of the Acoustical Society of America, and I started out early on, gosh, in 2004, I think. Yes, here we are. 2004, I became chair of the Technical Committee on Architectural Acoustics. And I very clearly remember doing this, right? This is a sample of the agenda that had been happening. And our technical committee, TCAA, had a wild reputation for it started at 7:30 at night. You can see that. And it would go until like 10:30 or 11. There'd be like 100 people, 100 architectural acquisitions who all love to hear themselves talk. And it would last forever. And I definitely felt that when I came in, what I did was I took that agenda, and I'm not going to be able to share all these details, but there were no times. There was, not sort of this, what's the specific issues, what's the priority items. And I did spend time coming up with a better agenda format that now had intentional times and trying to think about what was going to be more important. So that's one example. And then I also just wanted to share that now, as I lead faculty regularly, again, trying to have times, making sure that we're going to look over review items, so trying to be all those things that I said, that taking the time to construct a very pertinent, concise agenda. It takes time, but it is worth it. Then we should distribute it ahead of time. That way, attendees can prepare appropriately. They can understand what our goal is. I definitely am in favor that there be some brief social check-in time at the beginning of the meeting, because I do value that connection and feel that that helps build stronger teams. And so that's something that I would also recommend as you all think about building out agendas for the meetings that you are going to be running. Okay, we're prepared. We know why we're having this meeting. We have the people we want in the room and got this agenda. Now in the meeting, how is this still going to go off track? Well, expectations need to be set, right? When does this meeting really start? Does it start right at 7:30 p.m.? Or does it start when everybody comes over from the social finally at like 7:40? Are people allowed to eat in here? If it's a Zoom hybrid Teams meeting, is it expected that we all have our cameras on? Is it okay that I work on my laptop? One of the reasons we get frustrated is that these expectations are not explicit. And again, that can be a little bit confrontational, but that makes meetings go smoother if we can just confront them and have that out there. Then stick to the schedule. So I put those times on my technical committee meeting agenda. It didn't work perfectly, but I tried, and at least it would show people when I actually thought about like, how long will this take? And if it was taking a lot longer, then it's right there on the agenda that people say like, oh, this is taking a lot longer. So maybe some of the aware people will realize that maybe they should not talk as much. But keeping an eye on time, trying to be a little flexible, you don't have to be rigid. You could also consider, and in my technical committee, we had, like a secretary, like somebody was going to move into the chair position. And later we did actually assign that person to help be the timekeeper role. So, but sticking to schedules, as you all know, everybody hates it when the meeting goes long. So sticking to that is important. Group dynamics are important. So this has to go back to what I was, when I talked about those fundamental skill sets of how do you work in a team and how do you lead and have crucial conversations, how to be respectful, how to listen, how to acknowledge what others are contributing. That is all very important because this is something from the Crucial Conversations training. They talk about how people are respect radars. They are very attuned to whether or not others respect them. And when you are the leader of the meeting, if you want to keep the meeting on task and keep everything to be constructive conflict rather than not constructive conflict, maintaining that professional, respectful community is very important. Balance the voices in the room. So several of you had questions about this in the pre-webinar, because we've all been there, the very loud, gregarious people who start talking and then keep talking, blah, they love to hear this. So how do you balance and make sure that other voices are being heard? I think I have that on the next slide, but I also want to talk about psychological safety. When I am leading a meeting, that quick thinking and trying to be aware is I am looking, like, are people feeling psychologically safe? Or are they demonstrating that they're sitting back, not participating, rolling their eyes? Or are they actually even talking down, like, I can't believe that that person thought that. Like, everybody knows that we should do this. Those are described in the Crucial Conversations training as being you're demonstrating silence or verbal violence, and the reason people are doing that is because they're feeling unsafe. So how do we bring them back to psychological safety, tell them that we value what they're saying, not shaming them, not blaming them, trying to have a learner attitude, like how do we improve all together as a team to get to the goal that we want. So I wanted to show a video. I'm a little maybe behind where I wanted to be, but I do like this video. So I think I'm going to try it. This is from the Crucial Conversations training. I'm a certified trainer for Crucial Conversations, so I have access to their learning materials. And this one I just thought would be fun because it shows this is a meeting. This team is having a high-stakes conversation, and I want you to look for those things. Look for the silence and the verbal violence and see if you resonate with that.
All right, welcome everyone. Today we are going to continue our conversation about how to grow the company.
So we're trying to decide whether we build or whether we buy?
Exactly. Do we continue with the proposed acquisition or do we find a path that accomplishes something similar through growth?
Look, I don't want to sound too sold on the idea, but, well, I think buying up other firms has been our easiest path to growth in the past, right? And plus, it allows us to quickly bring in new products and services.
No offense, but you operations guys haven't typically been a beacon of innovative thinking. Everyone knows it takes organic growth to promote real creativity, right?
Look, from a sales perspective, buying gets you a quicker biz dev channel and increases your regional presence. I think it's fairly clear that that's where our focus should be.
Okay, from an HR perspective, buying other firms is risky and painful. Do we all remember that cultural problem that resulted when we
Okay,
bought?
Rob, we all remember what happened without you playing the I told you so card. Okay, look, I think that's the problem here. We are just entirely too interested in looking in the rearview mirror rather than looking at what's ahead. Or am I wrong here?
I guess I have nothing else to say.
I get it. HR is always worried about how people feel, but the rest of us get paid to produce actual results. And everybody knows that if you buy up a firm, you get rid of the competitor. It's that simple.
Yeah, but the market rewards organic growth, right? You could end up with a higher PE ratio. That's more of a predictable trend, which is exactly what our private equity investors are looking for, right? Sharon, you told me that very thing over lunch last week, remember?
No, that was not last week. No, I brought my lunch in last week, just trying to stay fit. And guys, it has been working out. You should give it a shot.
Daner, you couldn't be more wrong. Organic growth has too many risks. Everything takes more time. We end up defending our turf instead of expanding it.
Typical sales response.
Look, people, come on. It is one way or the other. We have to make a decision. Look, I am trying to remain neutral, but if you don't mind my saying, we have been in the acquisition business for a very long time. I don't see why we should change that. Maybe we should react to that. Is that okay with you, Rob?
Yeah, sure.
Good. Okay. You're on board too, Carrie?
Well, yeah, I'm all right with it. But there are some people in this company who believe we should go slow and put more resources into innovation and internal growth. But since acquisition's the only way we can reach our numbers, then I guess I'm all right with it.
Good.
Well, I mean, I guess that's what we should do then, right?
Okay, good. Looks like we have a consensus. Nice job, people. That is how you make a smart decision. Okay, next.
That was a long video, but I love it because it does really highlight this tendency for us in meetings to not feel psychologically safe and to start doing silence where we're being sarcastic and sugarcoating, we're changing the topic, we're withdrawing, or the opposite, which is verbal violence, where we're trying to compel people and we say, everybody thinks, or even name calling, or these things happen, and it is a skill to be able to manage that in the meeting in a respectful way. I can't show you how to do all that, but I encourage you to read some of those books or go through the trainings if you are leading meetings often, because they do then give you more strategies toward dealing with all these. No shame, no blame. There is a link on the Crucial Conversations training site where you can learn about your own style. Do you tend to go towards silence when you're stressed, or do you tend to go to verbal violence? And as I said, I'll be sharing these slides with AVS later, and you can click the hyperlink and maybe take that style stress test yourself. Okay, we talked about balancing voices. There are a couple of ways that you can do that if you're the leader facilitator is to explicitly invite those people to speak, because they are by nature, not going to be butting in or interrupting, but we do want their information in the pool of knowledge. And so as leader facilitator, I often will do that. I will be looking around, as in that case, and if I notice that somebody's being reserved or sort of resentful or something, I will ask them, say, let's hear what you have to say. There's another one that another tactic, which in teaching, those of you who are faculty members, you might have heard of the think, pair, share learning activity. You can do that in a meeting too, where if you have a question that you want the group to think about and start hearing answers, rather than have the couple of very loud, gregarious people start and monopolize the conversation, you ask it and then you have everybody be quiet and just write down their answer. So that's one person, each one person, write down what you think. Then maybe even say, okay, now let's depending on how big the meeting is, if I have 30 faculty, I could get okay, 3 of you talking about your feelings about this question, and then share it with a large group. So it's very similar to that teaching strategy called think, pair, share. That's a way that we can use to balance voices in the room. And when they go off track, oh, timing is everything. I'm looking for a gap as a leader facilitator. I'm looking for a gap in there, what they say, and I'm getting comfortable with inserting myself politely and saying, yeah, thank you. That's a really good idea. Right now, we need to talk about this, though. I do consciously shift the focus. Another tool that a lot of people who run meetings talk about is the parking lot concept. You can just call out that's really interesting, and we want to talk about that, but that's not the main purpose of today's meeting. So let's put it in the parking lot. And if there's time after we've covered the majority of the other agenda items that we wanted to cover today, then we can take it off the parking lot, or that we have it offline. So those are, you have to be bold enough in a way to start getting comfortable to do this, but it is a skill set that will have better meetings. And yes, while all the time maintaining respect and having fun. I had one more mentee, but I'm running a little low on time, so I'm not going to run it. It was just to have you all say, what are ways that we could try to have fun in meetings? So I'm sorry that because I can see my time is running low, I'm just going to say, here's things that I do. You have heard that I'm in acoustics, so I actually like to bring in music sometimes to like either before the meeting or during an activity in the meeting that can make it a little fun. Bringing food. People like food. They're maybe not as grumpy, have more energy, more motivation. So I bring food. As you can tell, I laugh. I try to smile and look like I am having fun myself. At the same time, I also try to be vulnerable, that it's not like that I can make fun of myself, if that makes sense. So, so I hope that you'll think about that too. As a side note, I highly encourage all of you to take improvisational comedy classes. I learned about this in an NSF workshop in about 2011 called Communicating Science. It was about science communication, where we actually ran improvisation comedy exercises to help us be better communicators. And I love it. We actually at Nebraska have offered improvisation skills classes for our engineers because of all the great things that it does to help us connect and communicate with each other in meetings and also with other people. So now we're closing. Basically, be sure to like have the action items. Who's going to do what, by when, how are we going to follow up? Did you notice that in that agenda sample I showed, that's what we bring forward at the beginning of the next meeting. So we capture what those action items are at the close, and then at the next meeting, we make sure that they have been held accountable. We have meeting minutes that will summarize those decisions, the action items, the due dates, set out the next meeting. And I also will, if there's issues in the meeting, and don't call it out in front of everybody, because again, the core principle here of like respect and awareness, I'm not out to shame or blame anyone. So let's follow up on the relationship issues later. If somebody was demonstrating negative behaviors, interrupting, talking over people, talking down to people with that verbal violence, then I will usually have a follow-up conversation with them, a crucial conversation of how that can be impacting it. I also call out positive behaviors, and another idea is that you can check in with your participants and get their feedback. How did you do as a meeting facilitator? And what did they find that you could have done better? If you're the meeting participant, because that was in the title of this, like, it doesn't mean you can't do these things, actually. It's a lot of the same things. Don't yourself be the person who's making it a time, motivation, or energy suck for other people. Be prepared yourself for the meeting, because if you're hating these meetings that don't get anything done, you're part of the problem if you're not being prepared. Be respectful. Don't disengage and start thinking about your shopping list. Help the facilitator keep an eye on meeting purpose and time management. And even when I am not the leader of the meeting, I have helped by interrupting and saying, but like finding that gap in the conversation and coming in and say, let's redirect. Help the facilitator maintain psychological safety and have fun and continue strengthening your own skill sets. So these are the two books that I highly recommend about meetings and how to run them. I still also think this article, I presented this in one of the previous AVS professional developments about growing your emotional intelligence, because that's part of that awareness, and knowing about teams, knowing about how to address conflict productively. And that is where I'm going to pause now and look for your feedback or questions. So I have also the pre-webinar, which I can bring up, but I was now just going to see how if I could address any of your specific ones that have come up. So I see one that says, ideas for effective team exercises at the beginning of the meeting. I think it depends on what you mean by effective. Like, again, I think we have to think about what the purpose is. But I often, like I said, am interested in setting the right fun tone. And so it might just be like, okay, what did you all do? Like the first faculty retreat that we'll have in the fall, we definitely will talk about what people did over the summers. So it might just be going around like, what did you do in the summer? I was at a professional society meeting in Montreal, and that committee started off by like, what are you looking forward to doing this summer? So it can be very quick and not take 15 minutes, right? That's when people are like, oh my gosh. It's brief. It needs to be very just quick, but like a little bit jovial. That's what and there are many other ideas that are available in the books. And if you just search icebreakers, this author is interesting because he'll say that he doesn't actually like the word icebreakers. Oh yeah, how to avoid alienating people that don't share the same ideas of fun. So I think we have to just I just keep at the helm that overall people will enjoy this meeting more if we build relationships with each other and are allowed to have some fun. And so they may not want to, but I try to role model that this is the best way. And so I that's how I do it. I don't say that that's the only way to do it. Exercise that get them energized to participate. Yes, I agree. I'm going to pull up some of these pre-webinar ones too, since several of you had, oh, sorry, I need to share that one more time. Let me come back to the Zoom. Share this one. From the current slide. Do you have suggestions for making sure everyone's voice is heard, one person doesn't dominate, how to improve participation from new members of the team? I feel like we addressed that. I hope you feel like we did. It does mean being comfortable actually calling them out, actually interrupting them, calling out the people who, calling on the persons who's maybe aren't contributing as much, and interrupting and redirecting. Like, yeah, thanks, George, for that. I like those ideas. I summarize what they said so they know I heard them, and I'm like, and if there was other stuff that they were starting to go off on, I'd be like, okay, we'll put that in the parking lot because that's an interesting discussion, but I want to keep the discussion on this. Does anybody else have comments? Joe, I didn't hear you say anything. What are your thoughts? So I will respectfully, I hope, call those people out. And particularly if they are new members of the team and feeling shy about that, then those are sometimes the people I would call out. There was another group about how do you cut off the lengthy discussion, get the meeting leader to move things along, keep it focused. I want to stick to the science, not just get into social discussions. The wandering speaker, refocus it. It's that respect and awareness, right? It does. There is no other way about it. We have to either have the follow-up conversation later with that person that's happening to give them the feedback in a respectful way, or we have to be willing to be in the meeting to respectfully say, thank you for that, but let's stick to this topic. Would you recommend meetings where the context is expected to be reviewed in advance? Would this prevent or reduce collaboration? How do you get people to do stuff before the meeting, get them prepared? And then maybe they aren't prepared and they try to conceal it, or they don't ask questions. The not asking questions, like this is difficult because we're all too busy. So I do think this is hard. I think trying still to put the ball in their court, right? Like making sure they have the information that they need, setting the expectation that that is what is needed, and reminding them of that expectation. I think but it is difficult because I've definitely done all that and then still had people participate who weren't ready. So this one had. Actually, I wonder if what should be the duration of the meeting? Should we divide part of it to be more specific? Yeah, I think it has to be tied to purpose. And you might have to just trial and error that you think this is the purpose, you think this is the amount of time. We have, at the university, promotion and tenure review discussions. And one of the things that I was associate dean for faculty in my college for a while. And one of the things that I felt like I had learned from sharing across multiple we have a Big Ten academic alliance and we would all share best practices, was that we actually needed to not feel time stress. And the leader facilitator needs to make that aware that maybe we didn't budget enough time, but we are going to try to stick to the time that we have. And if not, that if we didn't, then we would we'll continue the conversation. People shouldn't feel time stressed. And if the meeting is done and it was scheduled for an hour, we do not have to keep staying here. Like if the meeting's done, it's around 20 minutes. That's great. Let's stop. These were some others that were shared, and I don't know that we have a lot of time now because I'm at 1 minute left. But I put these at the end specifically, like, you know, of the ones that particularly this one, as a woman of color, how do I counter pushback if I am too actively participating, like I'm too bossy, too stern, too loud? That question, I highly recommend this book. It doesn't have the answer, but it acknowledges the issue and tries to provide some aspects of how to deal with that. I don't believe that there's a best time. Again, I think it's a purpose and what are we doing? And this last one I thought was funny. What about the people who are late and you're in that awkward silence? Well, this is where the social interaction can help because not everybody has to talk about what they did over the weekend or what their favorite ice cream flavor is or something. So, thank you all so much for participating today. I really appreciate your time and attention. And I will be sharing these slides and play a little music to close off. Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session. And we thank Lily for presenting such an engaging session for us. I know we walked away with some great tips, and now we all know how to participate and lead like a pro in these meetings. I just want to remind you to please take a few minutes to complete our survey at the end of this session. Your feedback is important to us, and it is certainly appreciated. Thank you once again for joining us today.